beads shine like the summer sun? Watch and see. Hey there, I'm Dina. I'm a pharmacist and a jewelry designer, taking my personal Southern Shores challenge to use every bead and finding in this month's Jesse James bead box. Today I'm turning the Sun-Drenched metal bead set into a glimmering necklace and an earrings combo. Let's bring that summer shine into your jewelry. It is the Sun-Drenched portion of the Jesse James Magical Mystery Bead Box for the month of June 2025. So this is the 3 sets right here that come in this one. So I'll show you how to do this little beaded portion here and then how to attach it to the pendant, and then we'll make just a quick little necklace using some Econoflex from Softflex for the wire, and then I've got all the findings for that, and then we'll make a pair of earrings with this one. We'll use the red, orange, and yellow beads for the pendant, and then on the necklace we'll do the whole rainbow color, so that way it would coordinate with the earrings, and the earrings is just going to use the green, turquoise, and the blue. So to start off with, I will show you how to do this beaded portion here in the center. So let me move some of this stuff off to the side so the camera does not go crazy and try to focus on everything on my mat. Alright, so to do this, it's going to be rounded peyote. So if you're familiar with it, then you should already know how to do it. If you're not, I'll teach you how to do it. So we're going to pick up 4 of our red delicas. So we're going to start off with 4. I just have a arm span length of thread that should be enough to be able to do the beaded work, plus be able to attach it to the pendant, and then just pull it down to the end of the thread to where you have just a comfortable amount to hold on to. We want to go back through just that first bead, so just the first one there. I need to move some of these bead things out of the way. I'm going to start getting caught up on a bunch of stuff. Okay. So when you pull that and just go back through that one bead, it should look like a little right angle weave. Trying to get it to sit right. If it doesn't sit right, then you just play around the beads until you get something that looks like that. So it kind of looks like a little cross of some sort. So now we're going to continue on. So we're going to pick up a bead and we're going to do peyote stitch. So we're coming out of that first bead. You pick up a bead, you go through the second one. And then it kind of sits out like a little picot there. There we go, now we can see it. And then continue on. Pick up a bead, go through the next one. Do that 2 more times. And we're just using the red color right now. We'll change to a different color on the next row. And then we're going to go back through that original bead. So this is the 4th one that I'm adding. So we're going back through the original bead. Now we need to do what's called a step up to be able to start the next row. So we're coming out of that original 4 bead, that 4th bead from the original row. Now we need to step up through that first bead that we added on the 2nd row. Now you're set up for row number 3. So row number 3, we're going to pick up 2 orange beads, and we're going to go from that sticky out bead from row number 2, and we're going to go to this sticky out bead from row number 2. So we're just continuing in a clockwise direction, and when you put those on, that puts 2 beads in between, 2 orange beads in between the two red beads. So go ahead and continue that around. So pick up 2 orange, go through the next one. That is in line, and continue that around until you get back to the very beginning again. When you get back to the very beginning, you're going to go through that original bead, which is the red delica there. So you want to continue through that original bead, and then don't forget to step up. To step up for this next round, we're just going to go through one of the 2 orange beads that we added this last time, so just one. And then this round, we're going to add 1 orange bead. We're coming out of that first orange one, we're going to go through the second one. So that's going to create another little picot type look. We're picking up another orange bead. We're coming out of that second orange bead, we're going to go through the third one. And then that just fills in the gap in between. So pick up another orange bead, coming out of that third one, we're going to go through the fourth. Whoops. To be able to get your picot look. So there's the picot. And then pick up another orange bead, go through the fifth. And then continue around until you get back to the very beginning again. And then at the very beginning, we will switch over to our yellow color. So I've got one more bead to add. And then we're going to go through that first orange bead again that we added 2 rows ago. And then we're going to step up through the next orange bead. So this is the first orange bead from the last row. So now, I gotta cheat for a second. Okay, I did 2. So now we're going to pick up 2 of our yellow beads. We're coming out of this picot bead here. We're going to go straight to the next one that's sticking out. And then these are going to kind of sit almost like that again. So it's almost going to be like the first round of orange beads that we added. Some of them are going to be a little bit tight, but we're going to use this round to connect to the form. So go ahead and pick up 2 more yellow beads. And then just make sure they sit in between the 2 beads. Pick up 2 yellows. And just continue around until you get to the very beginning. And I thought I forgot a step for a second, and I did not. So we're just doing this. And trying to get the beads to sit correctly. There we go. And then once you get down to this side, I'll show you where to step up, and then I'll break off and let you get caught up and rewind if you need to, if something is not making sense, so you can watch it again. And then I will show you how to connect this to the little pendant. Alright, so this is the last 2 that I'm adding, so we're going to go through that first orange bead that we started off with. And then just make sure those sit in a good way, like that. Then we need to step up and get ready for adding it to our pendant. So just go through that first yellow bead again. And now you're ready to start adding this to the pendant. So I'll break away, let you get caught up to that, and I will show you how to add it to the pendant in just a minute. Alright, so when you're caught up with doing your peyote stitch, you want to orient your piece here to where you have kind of a northeast southwest. And what I mean by that, we have a red bead and an orange bead that are sticking straight up right here. So that's going to be your north. Your east are going to be these 2 beads right here, the red and orange bead here. Your south are these 2 beads, and then your west are these 2 beads right here. And that's just to help kind of gauge where it's going to sit on the pendant. So we want to have our north beads facing the north, and so on and so forth. So we just want to orient our little beadwork to where you have your 2 north beads are in line with the top of the pendant, basically. So we're coming out over here off to the side. So what do you do now? So what I had figured out how to do is you just find a hole that's closest to wherever your thread is coming out of. Just go down one of those holes, and then you want to come up through the center. So don't hit any of the beads yet. You want to come back up through the center, so that puts a thread path around the form. We were originally coming out of this bead right here. We want to go to the next bead in line and go ahead and go through that one. So we're not adding any beads on that first section, we're just connecting it to the form. And then after each time you go around the form, you want to kind of just readjust your beadwork and make sure it's sitting in the way that you want it to sit. I forgot to put, you want to put your starter thread towards the back too. I forgot to do that. Well, if I can get it to go to the back. There we go. So starter thread towards the back. It's just easier to hold on to that way. So reorient everything until it's sitting in the right direction for you. So we're now coming out of that second yellow 11, or delica. So we're going to go ahead and add a delica to get from the second one to the third one. And then that adds another east bead, if you want to call it that. So there, you have that. So now you're coming out over here, and so you just need to pick a spot in the form that's close to where you're at. Go through that spot in the form, come up through the center, and then move on through the next bead, yellow bead in line. And before you pull too tight, just kind of readjust again, make sure everything's sitting in the right way. And then now we're going to add another yellow bead, and this will be kind of our southeast bead. And then that's all you do on this part. So just continuing on, going through the form, come back up through the middle, readjust a little bit if you need to. After you get this on a couple of times, 3 or 4 beads, then adjusting is going to get a little bit harder to do. Now I just flipped it in my hand a little bit, just rotated it some so that way it's easier for me to put my south bead on. And then move on to the next section, making sure everything looks still good. My north beads are still lined up. I'm going to go ahead and go through this hole right here, and I chose to use the beige thread on this one so that way these thread paths that you see wrapped around the form, you won't see them as, they won't stand out as much. And then we're going to add our southwest bead. I'm going to flip this in my hand again, so now north is now facing downwards. And then readjusting, get my starter thread out of the way. Okay, so this one, let's see, let's go through. I'm afraid it's twisting a little too much, so let's go through this hole right here. So that way it'll kind of keep it from twisting too much on the form. And then we're going to go through this bead to get us set up to be able to add our west bead to the form. Or to the peyote stitch at least. There we go. And I'm continuing to record just in case somebody wants to use the same thread paths as I am using. So you can kind of look and see where I'm going and which thread paths I'm using Sometimes that's something good for somebody who's brand new at bead weaving and may not understand how to exactly add something to a form like this. Then that could be something good. So if this is something that makes sense to you and you don't want to watch this portion, that's perfectly fine. You can skip on over to the next portion, and I will meet you back there here in a minute. But for those that may not understand how to do this, I'm going to continue on. So flipping it again in my hand, I'm going to go ahead and go through this hole because it's pretty well situated in there now. It's not going to move very much anymore. And then we're going to go through this bead to get us set up to where we can add our north bead. And see, our north bead is still pretty much lined up, so looking pretty good so far. So pick up the next yellow, go through the next one, and then we're going to wrap around the form one more time. And then we're going to add our last yellow bead. Then all we have to do after that is move to the back of the form, going back up through that first bead again, so we can add our northeast bead. And I'm having to kind of wiggle it around a little bit because it's getting a little tight. There we go. Just kind of finagle it in there a little bit. And then, yep, most of my beads stayed about where I wanted them to stay. It's kind of twisted a little bit that way, but that's okay. It looks good still. So we're going to go underneath the beadwork and through the center again. And then what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to work my way around the peyote stitch until I get back over here again, so I can tie off. So this may actually be a little tedious, but this is all you're needing to do. You just need to work through your beads, following your thread path until you get down to the center again. In fact, I think I'll just do it on the front, so that way you might be able to see it better. So I went through that east, or one of the east beads. Now I'm going through this one. I'm going to go ahead and go through this red one right here. Oh wow, couldn't see that. Okay, just came out of the orange one. Now I'm going through the red one. I'm just changing my thread path basically. And then I'm going to continue through the red one here in the center, and then I'm going to flip it to the back because I should be getting close to my thread that I started with. I need to continue through this red bead. Form's in the way. Okay. Flipping it back to the front again, and we're going to go through that next red bead, and that's where my starter thread is at. So now we can just tie this off, and then burn this down, and then after we get this burned off, then we can make just a really simple just beaded chain with your delicas. And I'll probably just do the rainbow color. I'll just go red to blue, and then back to red again, and just continue that around until I have, I'll probably do maybe a 16" on this one, make it a little smaller, a little bit more dainty. So now I'm just balling the thread up on the back, so that way it's a nice little ball of thread, and then now you have a little beaded portion added to your pendant. So that's all I'm going to do next is just string on a bunch of my seed beads onto my wire, and then I'll come back and I'll show you how to crimp off. Alright, so let's get this necklace finished. So I've got all my beads strung onto my wire, and I went ahead and crimped off one side because the crimping on this part is going to be the same on both sides. I ended up cutting off, what was it, about 20 inches? It's about 20 inches of wire, and then I beaded for about 15 inches, and then usually the clasp and everything takes up about an inch or so. So it's going to be around a 16-inch necklace. So I'm going to go ahead and put on the crimp tube, and like I said, this is going to be the same for both sides, so you can do the same process. Just on your second side, make sure you curl it up and curl up your necklace like that. That way you'll know that your beads are going to be tight, but they're not going to be so tight to where they're not going to be able to move around and everything. So what you want to do, after this focuses, is wrap your wire back through the crimp tube and have it come out the side. And then grab onto your wire. And then the this part of the wire, you know, the short part is on the right hand side of the loop, and then the longer part is on the left hand side of the loop. So what I'm doing is I'm holding on to the left hand side with my thumb, and then I'm pulling down with the right hand side until I get the loop about like that. And if once you get your first loop done, you want to just look and see if it's going to be about the same size. And it will be, because here in a second we're going to have to move this crimp tube up just a little bit to give it a little bit of room right there to be able to put your magical crimpers in and not squish bead, because you want to squish the crimp but not a bead. So go ahead and put that in the center of the crimp tube in the center of your pliers and squish down. And then turn it 90 degrees, center of the pliers, squish down. And then turn it just a little bit, squish, and continue to do that until you don't feel any resistance. And when that's the case, you end up having a nice little ball of crimp. So now all you have to do is just cut off your excess and then save those pieces, the extra little pieces of wire like this. That would come in handy if you ever need to use any, have any products that you need to use bulk pieces of wire to bulk up your crimp tube. So now we need to assemble the necklace, and I think I'm short one jump ring. I am short one jump ring. Let's see, I need to get another 6mm out. And I'm using the antique brass colors just because the gold color jump rings that I have are not the right color gold. And that's a different shade of gold, so I felt like this would look a lot nicer. So we're going to open up, excuse me, I just ate lunch in between these two clips too, so now I'm hiccuping because I ate fast. So we're going to open up our jump ring. We're going to just choose one side and put our lobster clasp on this side. We put the jump ring through the loop on the necklace first, and then through the loop of the lobster clasp. And then now we're twisting this back closed. We'll do the same thing with a jump ring over here. Just open that guy up and put it through the loop on the other side, and then through the larger jump ring through the small jump ring, so that way your lobster has something to clip onto. Now since this is another jump ring that I'm using, I'm going to make sure that this one is actually closed. This would be a good part that if you had any soldered rings, this would be a good place to be able to use some soldered rings. Trying to see if I can get it to focus. Okay, good. So now you can see that it's closed. So now this portion of the necklace is done. So now all we have to do is connect our pendant. And with our pendant, we always want to make sure that we're putting our pendant on in the correct way. Now, majority of people are right-handed, so it is typically a instance where you're going to find the lobster clasp itself to be on the right side of the necklace. So I just flipped it around as if I were to take this off and put it on my neck right now. So now the lobster clasp is on the right hand side, and then your loop is going to be on the left hand side. So I usually do put my pendants on in this way, so that way I know for sure, okay, my lobster is on the right hand side here, so now I know which direction I need to put my clasp or my pendant on if I don't add it already. So we need to make sure that the pendant goes on in this fashion, so that way the front side is facing. So go ahead and open up your 6mm, and 6mm may end up being a little too big. I may end up changing it to a 4, but I will figure that out. And then we're going to go around the necklace, clip on to your pendant, make sure that it's closed up, and then now you have a completed necklace. And that looks okay. I may leave it as the 6mm, but I may still change it to a 4mm. Just kind of depends. Alright, so meet me back in a second and we'll start working on the pair of earrings. Alright, so let's make this other set of the earring. So I designed this one before I started recording, so that way I could just come back and show you how to do it real quick. So you're going to need your thread and needle again, and we're going to start with the outer portion of the U shape, and then we're going to do the middle portion and then the last portion last. So I've already pre-counted the beads, and if you're using the Miyuki delicas, then you'll need 37 of your outer portion, you'll need 30 of your middle color, and then 23 of your color that's on the inside. So this is the outer, the middle, and then the inside color. So since I've already got them all pre-counted, I did that ahead of time, so that way you don't have to watch me sit here and count. I can just put the beads on the thread real quick. And I'm not tying to the form just yet. I will tie to the form when I come back down the beads one more time. And you can tie off if you wanted to and start it that way. And I just decided to start it this way. No rhyme or reason, just did it in this fashion and wanted to make sure, whoops, you come back. Wanted to make sure I did this one in the same way that I did the last one, so the last earring. Alright, so that should be 37 beads. So we're going to bring these down to the end of the thread, just to have enough thread left over to where you can hold on to it really easily. And then I'm going to pick up the form, and then I'm going to go through the right hand, the outer hole of the right hand side of the form. And I keep getting wrapped around my pliers down there. So you have the outer portion, and now what we're going to do is we're going to wrap around the form. So I went through the form, so now I'm coming back towards the front, and I'm just going to go straight back down all 37 of those beads. And then when you do that, that should put your beads in that that last little chamber. Now they're not going to be completely tied down to the form. So they're not going to be completely tied down to the form. They're going to be loose. So if that's something that bothers you, you can always go halfway through and then tack it down somewhere or something like that. I just wanted it kind of loose, so that way when you do this, of course now I'm fumbling with it when I did not fumble with it the first time around. So now when you do that, your beads kind of sit in the form. So this is what I'm going to do first. I'm going to take my starter thread and make sure that is on the back side, because I want to make sure that all my knots are on the back side. So I want to make sure the starter thread's back there first. There we go. Now you can tug on your threads, make sure they're tight, and then when you lay your beads down, they lay in the little chamber. And it's going to be loose, so they're going to flop around a little bit, but that's the design that I wanted. So if you don't want that to happen, like I said, you can always tack it down somewhere, and then I'll keep it from happening. Now I turned it to the back, and I'm going to just tie a simple knot, and then making sure that that knot stays on the back side of the form. So right over left, left over right, and then just make sure it ties down tight. And now we're set up to start our next row. So our next row, I think I just went straight over like this. So I'm just going to go from the back side to the front side in that second row of beads, and then pick up your next 30 beads of your middle color. So if you're following along with me, the first color was the blue. This middle color is going to be the turquoise, and then we'll put the green on the inner side. And then once I get all 30 of these beads on here, we'll do this similar thing where we push them all the way down. You can lay them in the chamber to make sure that your counts are correct and everything, because sometimes you might miscount beads and things like that, so that's always a possibility. I do that quite frequently, actually. So yep, that looks still pretty good. So I'm going to go around the form and then come back out through the front, so that way you have a thread path around the form again. And then tug a little bit on it to make sure that it's going to sit, or that it's going to be tight. It'll be tighter here in a second once you go back through some of the beads. Just make sure that your thread stays there at the top and it doesn't wrap around the side like it was trying to do just then. There we go. A couple of tugs and then it'll be tight enough here in a second. So we'll just continue around until we get to the other side. And then this other side, we started from the back and went to the front of the form. So just making sure that everything looks okay. Yep, okay. So we started from the back and went to the front of the form, so we're going to go wrap around and then come back through the front like that. So that way you have another wrap around your form again. And then this is 23 beads that you're adding of your green color. And then once you get these on, done in the same fashion, you will go to the other side of the form over here, and then you're going to wrap around again. So we'll go ahead and go from the front to the back, and then just kind of tug on it a little bit. It's looking pretty good. Then go back through a few of your beads. Make sure your thread stays on top of the form, doesn't wrap around it any other place that you don't want it to wrap around. And then continue through the beads. And once you get back to the beginning, make sure not to skip any beads. I almost skipped a bead just then. If you skip a bead, it's going to make it stand out more like a picot stitch, and that's not the look that I'm going for. So make sure you don't skip any beads. Alright, so we need to make the thread bridge over from the front to the back of this last one. So this last one, I'm just going to flip it to the back, and I wrapped around the front of the front of the form. I'm just putting my needle underneath that bridge thread that we created in between the two, these last two. So they're going to kind of crisscross here at the top. That's fine. Nobody's really going to notice that, especially if you're using this color thread. And then I'm going to go underneath the bridge thread right here that was in between the first and the second row. That should get you back to where your knot is at. And then I'm just going to create another knot. Another right over left and left over right. And then here, just make sure it's tight, is where I'm going to burn off. And you can do this pretty close to the product. Oh, there's lightning in the area. Might start hearing some thunder again soon. 'Tis the season for thunderstorms in the Houston area. Alright, so we got that done. So now that's the beaded portion of it. You can kind of play around with the beads a little bit, make sure that they're sitting in the channel, but you know, make sure that they're looking the way that you want them to look. Now you'll need to make 2 chains of your 4mm jump rings. I have 4 4mm jump rings already together, and I've got 2 of them sitting there. We're going to put one of these on either side of our form. Then you'll need 1 single jump ring to attach your 2 jump rings chains together, and then that single jump ring will attach the ear wire as well. So we're just going to put both of these on either side. So there's one of them attached. And open up the next one. Now this is where my knot's at, so I want to make sure that you're going through the hole and not the knot. You want to go around the knot and not through it by accident, because that might untie it, and then your beads would fall apart eventually. Alright, so those 2 are attached. Then we're going to get this jump ring out, and I'm going to make sure that my jump rings are facing in the right direction so I don't pick them up incorrectly, at least hopefully. Before I close off, I'm holding it up and down, just making sure it's laying correct the way that I want it, and nothing's twisted or anything like that, so it's looking good. So I'm going to go ahead and slip on the ear wire, making sure the back of the ear wire is towards the back of the earring. I do that sometimes. I accidentally put my ear wires on backwards. And good thing about most ear wires, all you have to do is just undo it and turn it around and you're good. And then that is now closed. So then when you have your other earring done, you then have a pair of earrings to go along with your necklace that we made from the first portion of this video, and now we have a completed set number 5. Needing more beading inspiration? I got you covered. Go to that playlist that I have down in the description below, and you'll get plenty of different videos there for you to get inspired for your next jewelry project. Don't forget to hit that like button, the subscribe button, and that notification bell so you'll get notified the next time I come out with my next video. I'll see you all in that next one. Bye now.